What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Gunfish TV. Today, we're going to be talking about frog fishing. Got it. Oh, there's one. There's one. Oh, that's a good one. There we go. It's a daggone giant. Oh my goodness. All right, so as many of you all know that have watched my channel, you know that I absolutely love catching big bass on a frog. But there's a lot of mistakes that new frog fishermen make. And these are things that you might figure out as you fish along. But I'm gonna go ahead and help you out on one of the most common made mistakes that I feel like new frog fishermen make when they get into throwing around the good old hollow body frog, and that is the rod. Most people, when they think about frog fishing, they think about fishing heavy pads, heavy hydrilla, just massively thick cover. So what they do when they start frog fishing, they go out and buy an absolute meat stick, a 7.4, 7.6, extra heavy rod. And I'm gonna tell you, for most applications where you throw a frog, you do not need a rod that heavy. Now, in some applications, absolutely, you do. You know, you're down in Florida, you know, fishing super thick mats, or you're on Gunnersville throwing a frog around, you have really thick mats. Those applications you do need a very heavy rod for. But in many situations, you do not. So out here today, I'm on a lake that has sparse lily pads, and as you can see, it has all these trees along the shoreline. So out here, I have to make very accurate, very specific cast to these targets to be able to get these fish that are on these trees. Basically, they're sitting right on the bases of these trees, and you have to put the frog right on them. And if you don't, you're not going to get bit. So you have to make very accurate cast to these targets. And you just cannot do that with a super long rod or with a super heavy rod. You just don't have enough tip to be able to make those accurate casts. And when you have a really long rod, you know, it's kind of cumbersome. You just cannot really get that rod to really, you know, put the frog where you want it to. You have to really fight it and force it to go where you want it to go. And you really do not want to do that. So basically, I frog fish with a 7-foot, 2-inch medium heavy Mach 2 rod. So 7.2 to me is a very good balance between length, and medium heavy is a really good balance between, you know, being heavy, but also having that very light tip to be able to put your bait where you want it to go. I've never had an issue with dragging a fish out of heavy cover with a 7.2 medium heavy frog rod. Now, like I said, I'm on a lake, sparse pads, trees, lay downs. In those situations, you do not need that super heavy rod. So I like to utilize a medium heavy rod, 7 foot to 7.2, so I can make those very accurate casts around the base of these trees. Because a lot of people, you know, when they think frog fishing, they're only thinking about super heavy cover. And if you only throw a frog in that super heavy cover, you are missing some big fish, and you are missing a lot of bites that you could be getting if you utilize frog, you know, the frog in other areas. Basically, shallow wood, lay downs. Like I said, the sparser stuff. A lot of people, they just bypass the frog and think about something else. But I'm telling you, the frog will absolutely catch giants in these situations, and you do not want to have a super heavy rod that is just way too heavy, and you can't make these accurate casts. Because if you can't make the accurate cast, you are going to cost yourself bites, because you have to be so specific to these targets, and you have to get that frog to land softly. You don't want it landing hard. You know, if you have a big old meat stick and you're throwing it up there and you're trying to, you know, make your bait land softly, you're just not going to be able to do it, because your rod is going to be so heavy. You know, you want to have that tip. You want to have that good tip. You want to be able to throw it up there softly, and you want it to land softly, and you want to be able to work that frog. That's something else that a soft tip on a medium heavy rod allows, is it allows you to walk that frog so much better. You know, if you're throwing over a mat and you're just dragging it over or doing whatever, you know, a really heavy rod, that's perfectly fine. But when you really need to walk that frog and you need the maximum action out of your hollow body, you need to have some tip to be able to walk that thing. So you got to have a medium heavy rod, you know, to get that action out of the frog. Also, if you have a rod that's too long, you can't walk that frog as well either. Something else, that little bit lighter tip in that medium heavy rod allows you to do is, if you're fishing, you know, like very target rich environments and you're kind of throwing, you know, kind of close range, when a fish comes up and blows up on it, no matter how long you fished a frog or top water, sometimes you tend to be a little bit quick on the trigger. You set the hook a little fast, and with that softer tip, it allows that fish to get it a little bit better. So when you set the hook, they have the frog a little bit further in their mouth. So it definitely helps with hookup ratio as well. But I just wanted to go over very quickly one of the biggest mistakes that I feel like people make when they get into frog fishing, and that's just they just fish with a rod that is way too heavy for the application of where they're fishing. You know, like I said, there's definitely instances where you need an extra heavy, where you need that 7.4, that 7.6. But today, for me, this very target rich environment, throwing around the bases of these trees and, you know, making very specific casts in these pads and all, I want a shorter rod with a lighter action so I can make very accurate casts. And something else, I mean, I'm throwing a frog on 50-pound braid anyway, so I have no stretch. So that little bit of tip, you know, if you're worried about not being able to drive these hooks in the bass's mouth, trust me, that is not an issue at all. I can promise you that. I've caught thousands of fish on the frog. It's one of my favorite techniques. And like I said, get you a little bit lighter action rod, a little bit shorter rod. It will help you out being able to throw around these trees and, you know, in a very target rich environment where you want to be very specific. You need that little bit shorter rod and you need that little bit lighter action rod. I guarantee you it will help you catch more fish on the frog. It is one of my favorite ways to catch them. And if you start utilizing, you know, a different rod, it probably will become one of your favorite ways to catch them too. So if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Go check out some of my other videos where I'm absolutely smashing them on the frog. I appreciate it, and I'll see you next time on Gunfish TV.